It's time for Top Story on AM 1480 WLEA Hornell. Here's Brian O'Neill.
Another week of bad winter storms, and Governor Andrew Cuomo gave his State of the State speech where he talked about the tax breaks and medical marijuana. Also, Assembly Speaker Sheldon Silver came out against Common Core. A lot of Republicans, including Hornell Republican leader John Buckley and Assemblyman Phil Palmisano and Assemblyman Noje, met with Donald Trump to try to convince Trump to run for governor. And St. James Hospital opened their orthopedic clinic. On top of that, some Corning schools went into lockout mode when gunshots were heard in a nearby neighborhood. It turned out to be that a young guy was shooting a squirrel on a nearby street. A fire at the Canisteo Historical Society. Fortunately, no injuries in either Corning or Canisteo. Coming up on Top Story this morning, we'll cover the top stories of the week as we always do. And this week we're talking with Albany reporter Kyle Hughes about Sheldon Silver's take on Common Core and Governor Andrew Cuomo's State of the State speech and plans for 2014. Kyle Hughes here in Segment 1. Coming up in Segment 2, St. James CEO Jennifer Sullivan to talk about things at the hospital. First, welcoming Kyle Hughes here in Segment 1. He runs NYS News. That's an Albany news service that provides state, capital, and statewide news. Our radio station, by the way, uses it. Great service. Kyle, thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me, Brian.
Kyle, the Buffalo News describes Governor Andrew Cuomo's speech as fiscally conservative and socially liberal. Your take on that assessment of the Cuomo speech?
Well, it would be fiscally conservative, I guess, in New York, but probably no place else in the country because New York's a pretty liberal state. But by New York standards, yeah, it's pretty conservative. He's trying to hold down spending, and he wants to cut some taxes. He doesn't want to cut the income tax, which is obviously a huge problem in New York, but he's looking at a lot of different business taxes, and he wants to put a cap on property tax increases.
Would you say it's true that the governor did not make any friends on the issue of fracking this year because Cuomo would not take a stand with, both sides end up getting annoyed?
Yeah, well, there were protesters from both sides outside the convention center in Albany while he was giving his speech, and they're equally upset with him, I guess, because he hasn't made a decision yet on whether or not to permit fracking, and he didn't even mention it in his speech.
On the teachers' unions, locally, I've heard them complain, individual teachers, not the official union leaders. I've heard individual teachers complain about Governor Cuomo because of their dislike of teacher assessments and because some of the teachers' dislike of Common Core. Any word on how the official unions are reacting to the governor's speech?
I think that they're very much focused on Common Core, and I believe that they're going to have a vote of no confidence this week in the state education commissioner because they want Common Core essentially to be put on hold. And of course, he didn't even mention Common Core in the speech. So he did mention school aid and a $2 billion borrowing program to buy technology products for schools, but there was no mention of Common Core.
How about the governor's idea of bonuses up to $20,000 for teachers who do a good job? Do you think that can go anywhere in the legislature?
That's possible. It's all on the table, and it's all one big package the way it works in Albany. Of course, the union wants anytime more resources are directed towards the school districts, the union generally does support it, so I would guess it has a pretty good chance of going through.
We're talking with Albany reporter Kyle Hughes. Kyle, you reported this week that Assembly Speaker Sheldon Silver says Common Core needs to be delayed, and there are a lot of complaints against Common Core. That's what Silver said. If Silver really turns against Common Core, is Common Core all over in New York State?
Well, I don't think so because it's really a creature of the state education department and the Board of Regents, and they have the final say. At the legislature, I don't believe can stop it. And it's also tied up with Race to the Top funds and the general push by the federal government and the Obama administration to, improve standards and educational achievement by children. So it would be tough, I think, to stop it at this point.
The state education commissioner, John King, the head of NYSUT, Dick Iannuzzi, was saying that he wants to have a vote of no confidence, as you mentioned before in John King. If that happens to the state education commissioner, would that have any effect on King's standing as state education commissioner, or would the legislature have to get rid of King?
Well, King is appointed by the Board of Regents, and I think that as long as he has the support of the regents, he's probably okay. And at this point, he clearly has the support of the regents.
And how does all that work?
Regents are elected by the members of the legislature, i.e. the assembly, because it's a majority Democratic vote.
Is John King in any danger of losing his job?
At this point, King seems to be okay, and he's obviously kind of coming under a lot of criticism, but I think his job security is probably still there for now.
The governor also promoting the idea of raising the age up for the 16 and 17-year-olds so they're not charged and convicted as adults in the same way that adults are.
Well, I think that what he wants to do is New York is one of the few states that does treat children as adults in courts, and what he's pushing for is, I think they're looking at that. I'm not sure it's 100% going to happen, but they would give judges a little bit more leeway in terms of charging, and prosecutors in charging and prosecuting younger people, teenagers who commit these serious crimes.
How about the texting while driving sentences? That seems pretty likely to get bipartisan support.
Definitely. There's been some, as you know, everywhere around the state, there's been some pretty hideous accidents involving people texting, particularly young people, who seem to think, they're invulnerable, I should say, and they can get behind the wheel and text and everything's going to be fine. Well, a lot of times they end up in these terrible accidents. So I would guess that, we're going to see something going on that to really bring home the message to kids, particularly, that if you get caught pulled over for texting, you're going to lose your license. Now, we've seen the signs going up around the state that Cuomo ordered essentially to get put up saying, don't text, pull over 2 miles ahead, and there's a texting stop. I think a lot of studies have shown that texting is, in many ways, worse than DWI. The people have less control over the vehicle when they're texting. They're not even looking at the road. And, coupled with the accidents that have happened and the lives that have been lost, I would guess that the governor and the legislature are going to act to toughen penalties for texting, particularly penalties that would get the attention of kids, new drivers.
And Kyle Hughes of NYS News, final question for you. Trump for governor, Donald Trump. Hornell's Assemblyman Bill Nojay is pushing for Trump to run. In fact, Nojay and Assemblyman Phil Palmisano and Hornell GOP leader John Buckley met with Trump yesterday in New York City. We hope to have Assemblyman Palmisano and Hornell Republican leader John Buckley on to talk about that on the Newsmaker show on Monday. And, Ed Cox, the New York State Republican chairman, is not really pushing for a Trump candidacy. Cox is big on Rob Astorino. Are you hearing anything on why Ed Cox is not trying to court Trump?
Well, I think that he's probably perhaps taken a more realistic view that Trump is not going to run for governor, that he is obviously very interested in what's going on in New York, but if anything, he would run for president. I mean, he's more at that level, I think, and I believe Trump actually traveled to New Hampshire this week. In terms of Astorino, I think that Cox sees him as a more realistic choice in terms of a candidate who would carry through and be nominated and run a campaign. I think that a lot of the Republicans, leaders anyway, do not want to see a repeat of Carl Palladino, who was the Buffalo businessman who ran against Cuomo in 2010 and, lost pretty handily and just carried the western New York area.
Yes, Palladino has said that if he does not agree with the Republican candidate's view on Brian Kolb and Dean Skelos, the state leaders for the Republican side, that Palladino, would get into the race sort of as a Ross Perot and mess things up. Any word on Palladino's view on Astorino? Well,
I think that Palladino is kind of a mercurial figure, as you know. I mean, he does say and do a lot of things that a conventional politician wouldn't do. Now, whether he's going to try to sabotage Astorino by trying to exact some sort of a pledge to get rid of the Senate co-leader and the Assembly minority leader, it just seems kind of a tilting a windmills type of a situation. I mean, Brian Kolb has virtually no power in the legislature by virtue of the fact that he's the head of the Assembly Republicans, and Skelos is, he does have some power, but he's sharing it with the Democrats right now, and I don't know if a candidate for governor would necessarily, other than Carl Palladino, would necessarily want to base part of his campaign on deposing a leader of conference in the state legislature.
Carl Hughes of NYS News, thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Brian.
St. James Hospital CEO Jennifer Sullivan's next.
Hurry in and save during the Family and Friends event this Sunday, January 12th and Monday, January 13th at your neighborhood Sears hometown store located at 7451 Seneca Road next to Dollar General in Hornell. For 2 days only, get an extra 15% off all home appliances and an extra 10% off almost everything else store-wide. Also, you can get up to 20% off all Kenmore appliances, plus an extra 5% off or receive special financing when you use your Sears card. Plus, save on all power, lawn and garden, and outdoor storage. So what are you waiting for? Hurry to your Sears hometown store located right in your neighborhood at 7451 Seneca Road next to Dollar General in Hornell. Exclusions apply. See store for details. Offers valid January 12th and 13th only.
AM 1480 WLEA.
We're back and now on the line with St. James CEO Jennifer Sullivan. Jennifer Sullivan, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Brian.
Jennifer, first question. How are things going at the new orthopedic center on Canisteo Street there near the hospital?
Wonderful. I can't explain how nice it's been. I mean, we had a ribbon cutting on Tuesday. The office is full already. A lot of excitement. We have 5 providers. We have an agreement with Rochester General Hospital to actually staff our clinic, and it's open full-time with call coverage 24/7, and they're providing not only inpatient and outpatient surgeries at St. James, but also using our rehabilitative services over at Mercy Care and our physical therapy services as well. So took off to a great start, and we're very excited to have and see a full clinic right out of the gate.
You know, on Monday on our Newsmakers show, we interviewed Dr. Spencer Annabelle. He says St. James is working and hoping to start up an after-hours urgent care clinic. Is there anything you could say there?
Yes, we've actually been working on that for some time. We know we need to increase access to primary care in the community. And so what we're looking to do is actually do that walk-in clinic over on Elm Street at the Elm Street Clinic. Really, we have started to spruce that up, and we've ordered the sign and all the things you do when you're trying to open up an office. And really, the last piece and one we've been working on was staffing the clinic with mid-level providers. And so it's always a challenge to recruit, and always takes longer than you would like it to. But I have my fingers crossed. We have a couple candidates right now, and with a little luck, we'll be open in very short order.
St. James also hired a new chief nursing officers for the nurses at St. James. She comes to Hornell from an Albany hospital. Can you tell us about Kathleen Broadbeck?
Yeah, she has over 30 years' experience in healthcare, and she does come to us from St. Peter's up in Albany. We're very lucky to be part of a bigger system, CHE Trinity, and that's what brought her to us. She hit the ground running on Monday. Monday was her first day, and she's already made some very positive, constructive, changes in nursing. She's met with all her direct reports, many of the team. It was great to have her here for our employee forums, and so we're just very happy to have someone of her caliber on our team.
The nursing home, Macaulay Manor, I understand it got a 5-star rating recently?
It did, and that's not something that you see very often, so I give the credit to Patty Dagan, our Senior Vice President of Continuing Care, and her team, but something you'd want to brag about because we have such a high-quality nursing home.
Another town meeting, they had one scheduled, I believe, for November, and then they had to reschedule it. But there was one before that, too, earlier in the fall. Now, you're going to be having one sometime soon, you say?
Yes, I hope to have that within the next 30 days or so. We're actually in the process of planning that right now, but certainly want to reach out to the community, speak with the community, spending a lot of time with our medical staff and our employees, and want everyone to understand what is the new vision for healthcare in Hornell. What is this new vision task force? What are they doing? When will they complete their work? Where are we headed? So in the employee forums, we've been holding those this week. We've been talking a lot about that, as well as our parent, Catholic Health East, which helps enable us to transform to the new delivery model. We've been talking about major trends impacting the organization, et cetera. But a very exciting time for us, and excited to share more information about the progress we've made and the process we're following with the bigger community overall.
Jennifer Sullivan, in a short period of time, you seem to be generating a lot of good news for the hospital, a lot of positives there. What kind of reaction are you getting on things like the newborn channel and the health channel, the new hospital educational TV channels?
I think people really like it. It's nice to be able to go into the TV and pick a topic, a healthcare topic you want to learn about, and and also the newborn channel, because having babies don't come with books, and so I think very well received. A lot of good initiatives going on here at St. James, and we're proud of the progress we're making and the pace at which we're making it.
Now, we talked a little bit off the air before the interview started. You say employee forums are going on this week at the hospital.
Yes, they are.
Can you tell us about how that's going?
It's going great. The first forum in particular is always usually our biggest, and, it's standing room only. And I've talked to the employees about the new vision for healthcare in Hornell, wanted to make sure that they know we're doing everything we can to preserve a healthcare presence in Hornell and the surrounding area and as many jobs as we can. Wanted to explain to them what NewCo means. When you think about creating a new or reinvented hospital, if you will, it needs a new company. So basically it's the financial and operational framework that goes with the visionary concept. And so we've talked about our challenge. We know it's great. We know our vision must be significant and supported by innovative thinking. And, really a large reason we have such a great task force and such a broad group of people is because you really need a clean slate, you need new thinking, and you need a team that can pull a very difficult task together in a short period of time.
A couple of times you've mentioned, and we've talked about it on the news and with Dr. Annabelle, the New Vision Task Force. Can you tell us the names of the members of the New Vision Task Force for St. James? Sure.
I'm on the task force. I'm actually the rural healthcare representative. So as the president and chief executive officer of the hospital, I'm also chairing this task force, which is a task force of the St. James Mercy Hospital Board. We have a tertiary a partner on the task force. His name is Stuart Putnam, and he comes to us from the Rochester area. He actually used to be the president of St. Mary's Hospital in Rochester, and currently the president of the acute care division at Unity Hospital. He comes to us because of I used to work with him a long time ago, and he has recently announced his retirement, and so I thought he would be a great addition to our team, and asked him if he'd come down here and help us, and he said yes. Dan Konopko is our chief financial officer, and he is a well-seasoned financial expert and has a huge background in audit, financial management, mergers, acquisitions, etc. Also, another person I've brought to the task force from the Rochester area based on a prior working relationship, and so he has agreed to come here not only as our chief financial officer, but to serve as the financial advisor to the task force. We have 3 physicians on the task force: Dr. Annabelle, Dr. Izzy Meir, our anesthesiologist, and Dr. McKellar. Certainly wanted to, include physicians on this task force because they're such a critical piece of the solution. And also we have 3 community members on the task force. One is Mayor Sean Hogan. The second is Mark Darrow, who is the managing director of Alstom, and Drew Sharma, the president of GTA Systems. So we really have a great task force. I think we have the group that can pull together this new thinking and help us further develop the business plan, one that's clinically and financially viable to ensure access to health care in the community going forward. Work to do, a short period of time in which to do it. We're trying to get our work done in 90 days. Clearly, if you think about the factors impacting health care, it's not a pretty picture, and all of us are struggling with the weak economy and the impact it's had on our businesses. You think about the federal budget deficit and the state budget issues. Clearly, the governor had his State of the State address. It was Wednesday, and basically kicked off the 2014, state legislative session. And I think that's going to bring tough challenges for health care. And so, we're really moving forward and trying to keep a lot of balls in the air at the same time. But a great task force to help me through this.
You mentioned the governor's State of the State. Did anything stand out to you from that speech? Did you happen to hear the speech?
Basically, with tax relief a major priority and a projected budget deficit in the coming year, hospitals and basically all healthcare providers are potentially at risk for further cuts. So we're keeping our eye on the budget details, and we'll provide more information as soon as it's available.
We're talking with St. James Hospital CEO Jennifer Sullivan. Jennifer, we're down to a couple of minutes. Any final thoughts before we go?
Oh, geez, there's just so much I could talk about, but I just want everyone to know that we're doing well in the recruitment area, bringing great qualified providers to the area. Our Alfred Clinic was not staffed for a short period of time after the physician there relocated out of state. It's now operating full-time. We have a couple mid-level providers out there. We've recently hired a mid-level for our pediatric office. Clearly, the orthopedic win is huge now that we have a full-time orthopedic practice. So a lot of good news, a lot of balls in the air again. But, moving forward at, I'd say, a good pace, and excited to implement a new vision for healthcare in Hornell to ensure continued access to high-quality care.
Right. And, one final comment. When Dr. Spencer Annabelle was on last, he emphasized the importance of people utilizing the hospital and not going elsewhere to out-of-town competitors. I'm guessing that the orthopedic clinic will help keep patients who need bone care in Hornell?
Yes, they've actually committed that whatever they can do in Hornell, they will. So whether it's, the inpatient surgery or an outpatient surgery, if it belongs here and they can do it here, they will. If it does not belong here, for instance, the infrastructure is such that you require care that requires tertiary care, then they would send them to Rochester. But I fully expect that they're committed. They want to serve this community. They're so excited to be here and help us. And they don't want the patients to have to travel if they don't need to. And so it's just very exciting to see a partnership work the way it should.
Jennifer Sullivan, St. James CEO in Hornell, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate the opportunity.
Also, our thanks to Kyle Hughes from NYS News in Albany. And be listening Monday morning to the Newsmaker Show after the 8:30 news. Hope to have one of the Republicans who was in the room with Donald Trump on Friday on our Monday show. That could either be Hornell Republican leader John Buckley, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano, possibly Assemblyman Nojay. We'll talk about this more on Monday morning here on AM 1480 WLEA Hornell.